Come and listen on
Don't be afraid to catch fish.
Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio with me, Nick, keeping you company and entertained and up to date with what is going on right now in the nation. There's a lot, that we are talking about, and there is a lot going on, and that is actually happening. If you take a look at all the things that is going on right now in the UK, there is so much more that is going on. And with that regards, we're talking about all the things that is happening. And in case you guys are wondering, this is Real Talk with me, Nick, and I'll be keeping you company all the way until 6 p.m. And yeah, if you want to be part of the show, it is pretty simple. All you got to do is hit me up on our numbers, 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. You can always call me up and let me know if you guys have anything that you want to say or you want to do or you want to talk about. Well, I will be glad to take them on aboard the show. And looking at the situation right now, well, right now the situation in Wales is not looking too good, and there's going to be rules. They're trying to set up rules and all of these things, and they're trying to lift all of these on the 7th of August. They're planning to do actually all these things to lift on the restrictions, but the way it is going and the way the whole situation is going, we're not quite sure how they are planning to accomplish this. I really don't know what the government has in store, what the Welsh government has in store for the people, but the way the situation is going, well, there is going to be definitely a lot of talk and a lot to converse about this particular matter. And there is, like I said, they are going to be talking about all these things and a whole lot more. So most of the COVID rules in Wales, but not all, are set to be scrapped from the 7th of August. That's definitely something that they want to do. They will definitely be doing. This is what the government is saying right now. And they are confirming that, okay, right now what we're going to do is this is what we're going to do. And they're saying, okay, right now the whole plan, them scrapping the 7th of August, where they scrap all the restrictions. Well, this will depending on the state of the pandemic in Wales. So with regards to that, they will have to look into that, and then they can decide, okay, with regards to this is how we're going to do this, and this is how we want to handle the situation. But like I said, looking at all this, it's objectively, you look at this, okay, it might sound good in numbers, but then you have to understand people will not want to go back home anymore. I mean, nightclubs are opening again, and all these entertainment are opening again. Social distancing laws will be replaced with a requirement for workplaces to assess the risk. So right now they are recommending a lot of people to start working from home. This is what they're trying to recommend, and they're trying to tell them, okay, it's safer for you guys if you are working from home. And getting back to the thing right now, what is changing in Wales? What is the thing that is actually changing? Well, the 17th of July, that is the alert level 1. That's where we're going to be, where Wales is going to be. And up to 6 people in different households can meet in private homes and holiday accommodations. And looking at all these things as well, there will be more also. Looking at like I said, organized indoor events can take place for up to 1,000 seated and up to 200 people standing. So if you're standing or seated, it doesn't really matter. You can still go through this. So with that regards, they are going to be talking about this, and this is just some of the rules, some of the things that will change. And looking at that as well, there will be organized indoor events, like I said, something like this, where 1,000 people can be seated and 200 people can be standing, and ice rinks can also start to reopen, and that is something we can actually be looking forward to. I mean, ice rinks opening again, that's something definitely to be looking forward to. And with that regards, also on the 7th of August, where the alert levels will drop down to 0. Right now that's the plan, to get it at level 1 on the 17th of July. But on the 7th of August, well, it will be alert level 0. So no limits on numbers of people who can meet indoors. Face covering still required in most public places and on public transport. However, no law on social distancing venues will have to be assessed for risks, though. So, okay, they're saying, okay, this is how it's going to be. This is how we're going to play the game. But you have to understand, venues will be looked into. They will be definitely, trying to match all of these things. So the First Minister, Mark Drakeford, said that he confirmed that people who have been fully vaccinated will no longer need to self-isolate if they're returning from an amber list country following decisions taken in England and Scotland. They're saying, okay, this is just how we're going to handle this, or how we're going to do this. And the changes come despite the rising cases of coronavirus in Wales, but mean more rules will remain in place than in England. They're saying, okay, this is how the rules are going to be. They're going to determine it from this. And looking at all these things, Mark Drakeford went on to say that while he was reasonably confident that the vaccination had weakened the link between these infections, and I know you've heard it time and time again. They say that it's weakened the link and serious illness. There's still a risk, though, and this is what Mark Drakeford is saying right now. There's still a risk that this third wave of the pandemic could cause real harm. And I want to know. I mean, yes, it's still causing as much harm as it can right now. It is doing that, and yes, a lot of people. This is the reason why people are getting armed with the vaccine. Why they're making sure that they get their first doses and second doses, because this is really important right now. And he went on to say, Mark Drakeford, he said that we are entering a new phase of the pandemic, and cases of the virus have risen sharply since the Delta variant emerged 6 weeks ago. But thanks to our fantastic vaccination program, we are not seeing these translate into large numbers of people falling seriously ill or needing the hospital treatment. So they're saying, okay, nothing to worry about with that regard. There's nothing, that we, with that regards, we don't have to be worrying about anything. But at the same time, people are, the risks are still there, where we are still right now looking, because of the vaccine program. The current situation of Wales right now is where not a lot of people are seeing an uprise in hospitalization. So that's a good thing, I think. That is definitely a good thing. And looking at that as well, what is planned for the 7th of August? Well, right now, ministers have proposed, if conditions allow, well, no legal limits on the number of people who can meet others. That's just one rule of what they are trying to apply and they are trying to implement right here. And the other one is all businesses and premises will be able to reopen again. And they're saying, okay, this is just, something that we are definitely planning, and they're saying, okay, all these businesses will be reopening again, and all firms will be expected to carry out a risk assessment, though. So these big companies, well, they will be required to definitely look into this, and face masks will also be required to when you're going to shop or on a public transport and when assessing health care. And these are just some of the things that will be that is planned for the 7th of August. This is what they want to do, and the face mask rules will remain in place despite the UK government's decision to scrap them in England. So while the laws requiring social distancing in workplaces and hospitality will go, the issue will be left for organizations to work out. And they actually, these big companies will have to decide for them and work out, the technicals, the schematics of all of these things. And the Welsh government went on to say that the coronavirus control plan states that it will be for organizations to assess the risk depending on the nature of the premises and the risk of exposure. So the Welsh Conservatives welcome the change, and their Senate leader, Andrew R.T. Davis, said, while we regret the Welsh Labour government has been the last government in Britain to publish a plan, it is a case of better late than never, and lifting of restrictions will ensure we can get our economy and public services on the road to a recovery. I mean, those are pretty big words by the Senate leader right there, and I really don't know how they want to do that, but opening the country, yes, all at once. I hope they know what they're doing. And the hospitalization cases right now in Wales is at an all-time low. So the confirmed cases are, in comparison, they are lower than they were. Actually, they're more than they were back in the 20th of May to the 5th of June. Between that time span right now, you can see a little bit of an upward trend, looking at the data for the digital health and care of Wales. So these are just, data from the 14th of July onwards. And they're saying, okay, there is a rising number of cases, but it's not as much as it was back in March of last year. Back in March, actually, this year, from the March drop, it's nothing in comparison to July. July is not that much. And this is what they're trying to say. And according to the control plan, moving to the 7th of August will be subject to no new variants of concern being identified in Wales. Hospital admissions and deaths from COVID-19 remaining at relatively low and manageable levels. And if the vaccination program continues as expected. So hospital admissions have risen in the past month, but remain significantly lower than earlier in the pandemic. So coronavirus rates in Wales stand at 145.3 per 100,000 people compared to 138.2 the day before. There are 69 patients with confirmed cases of the COVID in hospitals compared to 39 a week before. So that number is actually at its highest since mid-April. and they're saying, okay, these are just, the rising number of cases. This is how the situation is going. We will have to look into this as we go along, is what the Welsh government is saying. Hopefully they got themselves sorted out, figured out. I really don't know how they are planning to handle this, but all we can do right now is hope that they are on the right path. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this short interval. And taking a look at your time right now, it is 3:44. Good afternoon.
Again, but now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much has changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Or you didn't do very well, and they get upset, And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, he might say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it." And that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday. And what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. What am I saving or investing for? Why am I doing it? When will I need the money? And how much money do I need? Yeah. So that's quite important, because when you're looking at your net worth, you've got to start with saying, well, what do I want my net worth to be, so that there's a goal, and then work backwards. How do I get there? And if I can start with £50 or $50 a week, if I save that every week, and you can go online and use calculators online. I don't have to teach you the maths behind it, but you can say, okay, and if I get a 3% return and I put this away for how long will it take to reach my goal? And that's called just this basic cash flow projection calculations. And it's what we use in financial planning all the time. What we say to clients is we say, okay, what is your goal? What is your objective? Where do you want to go to? And we discuss that in a lot of detail and over most of the meeting. And then the rest of it is saying, okay, in your exact circumstances, with your risk profile, with how you feel about investments and pensions and taxes and where you are and who you work with, and your education level or your lack of education or how involved you want to be. There's a lot of variables that we take into account, and then we say, okay, here's a plan. You start like this, that's great. And then we review it all the time. And we say, okay, we need to increase it, we're on track, we're not, this is what is happening. Because remember, when you're dealing with assets, the valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday, and what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's a struggle. Yeah. So there are strategies everywhere from £50 a week up to £100 million pounds, and they're different. Right? They range differently from everyone, but and from country to country, to be fair. Different countries have different tax laws, so different vehicles. But from your point of view, at the sort of normal end, I'm not going to call it the low end because I'm in that boat as well. It's as tax efficient as you can get it. That's where you start. You use all the tax efficiencies, and then you step up into different things.
Hold up, if you wanna go and take a ride with me, better hit me, baby, one more time.
More variety than you can imagine. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio with me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all the things that is going on right now in the UK and the situation and how everything is actually being handled. Well, looking at how the government right now, the English government that is in England, well, how they want to carry on this thing. So they're saying, okay, you can fly, you can carry on flying. This is what the government has told the general public, the British public, as it outlines its plan to reduce transport emissions to virtually zero by 2050. So how is that even going to work? Is that even feasible? I mean, people want to know, okay, if the government wants to do something like this, well, how feasible is it? Can we actually achieve this? And will we actually go through with this? Is what a lot of these people want to know. The general public generally wants to know right now. And ministers say that new technology will allow domestic flights to be almost emission-free by 2040. They're saying, okay, the plan is 2050 zero emission, but 2040 it's virtually almost all of this emission will be gone. So all of these domestic flights will be zero, at least almost emission free by 2040, and in international aviation to be near zero carbon by the mid-century. That is 2050 is the plan. So the policy has been ridiculed by environmentalists who say the government is putting far too much faith in innovation, and they say demand for flying and driving must be curbed if the UK is to meet its ambitious climate targets. So the comments on this aviation form part of the government's transport decarbonization strategy announced on Wednesday. So this, the comments on all this aviation part they're talking about this was during their announced on Wednesday. So they're talking about their strategy and all of that. So the transport is responsible for 27% of the UK's emissions right now, so making it the single biggest emitting sector. Before the pandemic, flying made up at least 7% of overall emissions. So you're saying, okay, this is how we'd rate it. But then flying is also included into this, and you can see why. And the government has pledged the entire economy will virtually be a zero carbon by mid-century, and is relying on new technology to plan a significant role in achieving that, especially in aviation. And Transport Secretary Grant Shapps, he went on to say, I quote, "It's not about stopping people doing things. It's about doing those same things differently. And if we can still fly on holiday, but I'm in more efficient aircrafts using sustainable fuel, we will start driving, but we will still drive rather, but increasingly in zero emission cars." I mean, look, Grant Shapps are talking about all these things. I see the ambition. It's very ambitious goal right now, but to get there, it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort. It's not only, like they said, it's not all about innovation. You can't really put all your faith in innovation. And he went on to say that the progress towards low carbon flying was further advanced than people realized. And he continuing that we've already have electric aircrafts going up in the air, and in the fact that the UK has become the first country in the world to have a hydrogen aircraft flying as well. So they're saying, okay, the UK is making progress with regards to this. And in addition to those advanced technologies, we are also having things like sustainable aviation fuel. And Mr. Schaap said the government planned to use sustainable fuel to fly home some participants in November's COP26 conference. However, critics say reduction in emissions will not be achievable without reducing the amount that we fly. Because look, we have to understand, flying is what is going to happen here right now. Flying is also, like I said, pre-pandemic, 7% of emissions is coming from flying. So this is just, a bunch of these things. These are just the important things, of how it is going. And they're saying this is what is going on. This is contributing to the emissions in the UK. If you want to cut that, well, we want to have to cut down on the flying. We'll have to find some sort of alternative, because the fuels in the flights right now does not look like it can be replaced anytime soon. So they're saying we need sustainable fuel for this to fly, a lot of these people as well. So how is this going to work? So the Green Party MP Caroline Lucas described the government's approach to aviation as a flight of fancy. I quote there. She did say a flight of fancy that relied on technology that's still being developed. And she said the government should not hoodwink us, is what she's talking about. So Mr. Shapps said a bigger problem was road transport, which contributes to at least 90% of transport-related carbon emissions in the UK. But he felt progress was being made in that regards. Because look, right now, yes, we are at that point where we are focusing on this, but we will be moving out of this in the coming of months, and hopefully in the coming of years, rather. It's not going to take months, it's going to take years, but then we will transition into more eco-friendly vehicles. So let's see how it goes. Hopefully there is something more they will talk about this. And looking at this, Grant Shapps also went on to say that I think we're reaching that tipping point. When you switch on the television or see an internet ad, you'll see that electric cars and hybrid cars are almost exclusively the ones being advertised right now. And if you look at that, the government also has said that the sales of these new cars and vans powered solely by petrol or diesel will be banned in the UK from 2030. So in another 10 years or so, give it 10 years, they are saying that we are going to be banning this. So 2030 is the deadline for a lot of these vehicles. So the transport plan also says that new lorries will be zero carbon by 2040, running on batteries or hydrogen using a world-leading UK policy. Again, I don't really know how that's going to work and if that is really sustainable. I I hope the government has it all figured out by now. Let's see how it goes, though, in that regards. And a study shown recently that the trucks accounted for 2% of vehicles in the EU, but 22% of road transport emissions. So the Road Haulage Association, or the RHA, said the government's proposals on these lorries were speculative and unrealistic and potentially damaging to business. So that is also there. They put it down, they laid down the facts right there, and this is what they're saying. So this is what the RHA have been talking about the government's approach to all this. And they say these alternative HGVs don't yet exist, and we don't know which and when they will, and what will they even cost, said the RHA chief executive Richard Burnett. So for many haulage companies, well, there are fears about the cost of new vehicles and a collapse in the resale value of existing lorries. And the problem is even worse, though, for these coaches, which are more expensive to buy and have longer life cycles. So they're saying, how are we going to transition into this? How is that even going to work? I really don't know what the government is looking onto this. They have an initiative. I'd like to see their action plan with that regard. And the government's transport decarbonization plan also says vehicles will become more efficient under a new regulatory framework for manufacturers. So smart charging for electric cars will enable drivers to top up when cheap renewable energy is available. And the government's fleet of cars and vans will be all electric by 2027, and support for active travel, that is walking and cycling, will increase. And the rail network should be net zero by 2050. However, critics said the plans did not go too far, and they're saying, okay, it's not really going too far ahead. They're saying about all these things, they're giving us some sort of promises, but is this really going to be enough? Is what they want to know. So Kerry McCarthy, the MP Labour's shadow transport minister, said this plan has been a long time coming, but it was barely worth the wait. So the government is still stalling when it comes to the tough decisions needed. And she added, citing the rise in rail fares and the cut in the plug-in car grants. So she went on to talk about this and criticize this. So the Green Party's Miss Lucas said it was a missed opportunity to really rethink how we organize and how we travel. So Green Group said problems areas remain such as building roads and the HS2, which add emissions from making tarmac and concrete and allowing the cost of driving to fall and the cost of rail to rise, and permitting car-dependent housing developments and the boom in large SUVs. So they're saying, okay, these are problems. These problems are still there. These are the remaining problems that are happening right now. And how is the government even tackling this is what they would like to know. And yeah, we'll be talking about this and a whole lot more as we go along in the show. And if you want to be part of it, all you got to do is pretty simple. Hit me up on those numbers, 07852-473-473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. And while you're at it, also check us out on our social media platforms. That's right. We're pretty much big on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Subscribe, like, and follow us for some amazing content. But with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break and taking a look at your time right now. It is 4 o'clock on the dot. Good evening.